Good day, fellow pilgrims in Christ, wherever you are across the Methodist connection. And we hope that you've had a well-deserved rest during this festive season and are coming back with in full force to do and really serve in the space that has been given to you in the field and the vocation that you are passionate about. And we pray that as you're on this journey, whatever the challenges might be, whatever the difficulties might be, they become learning points. They become tools that are building you instead of breaking you. I don't think it's the intention of anybody, especially from the MU side, to break you down. The intention really is to give you resources and the tools to build you and make you a strong person and a strong minister who will be able to face all the dynamics of the work that we do. I mean, we are in the ministry, we come across different cultures, different values, different people, races, different ethnic groups. So whichever way you are sent, whichever direction you are sent, you adapt or you die. If you can't adapt, then you won't survive in any station. And also, people must not be centered around you. You need to be able to be flexible enough to adapt so that you can take them to the better heights. My name is Mevana Buthelezi. I'm stationed in South Durban Circuit 703. It is a new circuit for me. Previously, I was in Tabanchu Circuit. Currently, I'm at Montclair Society. Have a wife and a 9 months old son. So we are taking it as a day as it comes. So having to navigate the new station and a toddler that toddlers can be very handful, and all that we have to do really we need to be organized around that. I've been asked and tasked by the director to lead and do the presentation on Project 5. Project 5 is around issues of leadership, and we looked at which area will really need our intervention or where we should show leadership as a church and capacitate the ministers that are serving in the church to deal with those areas. Because in one way or the other, we realize that there's a lot of conflict that happens, especially within the church. There's a lot of conflict that happens in the communities that we serve, be political parties, families, marriages, soccer teams, taxi industry. So a number of issues really create conflict. Sometimes it even gets violent, for that matter, and that's where we don't want to get to. We don't want to see conflict that is violent, where people are killing each other, people are injuring each other, endangering each other's lives, and so on. Conflict will forever be there. So sometimes conflict is positive, sometimes conflict is negative. And where there is conflict, it's very important that we find each other, and in finding each other, there will be lessons. So in a nutshell, this project, leadership in conflict resolution and approach to mediation, we are really looking into how then do we mediate as a church, as the servants of the church. And we wanted also to try things that have not been tried before, and ask ourselves, can you mediate a conflict that has not happened, that has not taken place already? How possible is that? How difficult is that, and so on? So more than anything, we are saying that there's always potential conflict everywhere, whether in church, whether whichever space that we find ourselves in. So when there is that potential conflict, are we able then to develop tools and resources that will help people and communities and church members to be ready, or to be capacitated, so that by the time things don't go well, at least they are capacitated to be able to deal with whatever conflict could have arisen. There's a number of areas really where you find that they are the status of conflict. Firstly, you can talk about politics. Politics right now is a very volatile space. Political parties not finding themselves, not agreeing with each other, and so on. Those that are married not finding themselves, and then families getting involved, friends getting involved, and it becomes nasty. Church has been a larger base, or maybe a common base where we are close to, where we find that things get out of hand very fast. So in one or the other, conflict may be avoided. We can talk about it. We can negotiate to deal with it. It can be arbitrated, adjudicated, resolved by legislation, by political action, or by violent force. And whichever way you look at it, if you avoid conflict, are you able to avoid it forever? Talking also is very important. Dialogue is very important in dealing with conflict. So where you come in really as as a mediator, you come in as a third party, for that matter. So in a space of conflict, you find that there must be a third party that is then able to bring the groups together. It can be 2 groups, it can be 3 groups, it can be a number of groups that are differing on how to approach whatever they need to approach, or deal with whatever they need to deal with, and at that time, then you need a neutral person, a third person that will really address the issues of conflict and mediate in that. And the reason that I said is it possible that we can we can even prevent conflict before it happens through mediation? It's also, I think, an area that seeks further research. So those that are passionate about this subject and are in the academic space, really, this is a challenge to you to really research that space, and so that we can learn more out of that. For an example, is it possible to mediate between taxi associations even before they think about getting on each other's throats? So parts of this project are really about that. We're developing a manual to prepare people and train them, so that when that time comes, at least they are able to then find each other. Developing strategies really to deal with conflict, and obviously the absence of conflict is generally the presence of peace. But it's not always where we can argue that peace is directly linked to the absence of conflict, because conflict also is there. It becomes a necessary tool to bring us to the space of peace. Sometimes conflict can be positive in such a way that it creates a dialogue and a debate in a peaceful manner. So we can still have a conflict, but deal with it in a very peaceful manner. Now, when we talk about peace, there are some definitions of peace that are loose. So there is negative peace that we talk about. It refers to the absence of violence, but might include latent conflicts. That's negative peace. Positive peace becomes then the restoration of relationships, establishment of justice, and the creation of just social systems that serve the needs of the whole population. And this is really what we are striving for, where we see just social systems, where we see that the systems are serving the needs of the whole population. We are striving also to build positive relationships and restore relationships in one way or the other. And I think somehow the powers be missed the point when during the transition from apartheid to the new government. We could have focused on really positive peace, but I think we focused a lot on negative peace, where the absence of violence meant that we are living in peace, but there were no restoration of relationships. Establishment of justice was there, but it didn't favor everybody, and also social systems are really absent in our communities. And let's look at what conflict is. Conflict arises when two groups or individuals, or more than two groups, perceive incompatible goals in their drive to meet their needs and interests. So when in life we go about really pursuing goals, pursuing life in a particular way. So once that becomes incompatible, once that we find that we are clashing somewhere, then conflict arises. And obviously, conflict is a natural part of human experience and relationships. There's no way we can have relationships and we don't experience conflict. And also, it can not only be a negative threat, but also it's an opportunity to increase our understanding of ourselves and others. That is conflict. Depending also on how you approach it. I want to talk about the process of dealing with conflict. These are some of the options. There are two options that we have: the non-adversarial option and the adversarial option. The non-adversarial option, you are looking at collaborative negotiation, you are looking at mediation, you are looking at dialogue, and adversarial, you are looking at arbitration, trial, confrontational. And where we are coming in really as a church, as servants, we are encouraging the non-adversarial, so that things are negotiated, there is dialogue, there is mediation, and people find each other, and the peace that arises out of that becomes mutual, and it becomes genuine and authentic. Because once you go the punitive route, obviously one side will forever feel that justice was not served. We will forever feel that they were hard done. And then what then becomes mediation? Mediation is a third party impartial help towards parties and communities. So mediation, you can't mediate your own conflict. If you are part of the conflict, then mediation should come from a third party. It's always voluntary. It's confidential. So as a mediator or somebody that embarks on mediating conflict, confidentiality is very important, because that makes people have trust in you to believe that you can assist in resolving that. It is informal with some structures and rules. Also, parties explore their best options for solutions. So it is those that are not finding each other that you should be able to guide for them to be able to explore the best possible solutions. So you are not, as a mediator, you are not coming up with solutions, but you are setting up a process that will enable people to dialogue to such an extent that then they find best possible options for their solutions. And one critical thing also in mediation is that parties are the decision makers when reaching the agreement. They make that decision. It's not you that make the decision. They make the decision. And sometimes the decision would be, let's agree to disagree, because we are really not finding each other. And we'll come back to this thing later, and so on. Still a decision that the parties would have taken. In mediation, a relationship is important. Obviously, you know that in any relationship, there's issues of trust. There's issues where people will feel that they are protected. There's issues really of openness, mutuality, and so on. So, the relationship in mediation, very, very, very important. Implementation is on responsibility of parties. So once parties have decided and taken a decision on which route to take, the implementation of that also depends on them. Sometimes they may implement, sometimes they might not implement. But they are the custodians of their own decisions. So you'll find that in Project 5, an example is made of a taxi industry that approach a particular group, whether it's political parties, whether it's taxi industry, taxi associations, and so on, and start building a relationship with them. Because in fact, I'll encourage you that as soon as you get you get material and you leave the seminar, start going to taxi associations, to whatever groups that you want to deal with, and build relationships. Build a relationship with them so that it's not a shock for them. Because once people look at you with suspicion, why do you want to do this, and so on? Because you don't want to do this project when you are under pressure to submit. Take your time. It takes time to build relationships, so that when you then engage on this project, at least you are engaging with people that know you, that are comfortable with you, that will be open enough to take the journey with you. And as a mediator or a facilitator, so facilitation becomes very important in the mediation process. What do you do in this process of facilitation? So as a third party, you really manage the process. You outline the process. So in one way or the other, the parties, when they sit around the table, they then talk about the outcomes. What are the anticipated outcomes out of this dialogue or mediation process and so on? And then you then together come to an agreement on what process to follow. How people should be speaking to each other, how are they going to address the issues, what are the no's, what are the yeses, what are the gives and the takes, what can be compromised and not. And as I've said, solutions will come from the group, and also we need to emphasize that this process is voluntary. So you do this voluntarily. Communication is direct. I mean, you can't mediate sending people. Go and tell them to do this. Go and tell them to do that. You directly communicate with the parties that are involved. Also, what is important is collaborative, because at the end of the day, the groups, when they find each other, that's collaboration. And you might even find that they come with the best solutions ever, that will build the community, that will build their spaces of work, and that collaboration will be very important. It is informal, and mediation also, when you facilitate mediation, the intention really is to reach agreement by consensus. Because once you talk about voting and stuff like that, then it divides the groups. So you mediate to such an extent that even the agreement that is there, or the decisions that the group takes, is consensus. And again, implementation is by the group. And the large part of mediation is dialogue. There's no way you can mediate when people are not talking. It will be very difficult to mediate when people are not even talking to each other, and so on. But at least when you are there, they can talk through you, and that will be very important. So when you talk about the dialogue, it should be inclusive. It should be a participatory process, where really everybody participates. And as a facilitator of this dialogue, you also need to make sure that people participate. I mean, it's very possible that in a process like this, one person or two people can be at the center of dialogue without really hearing views of others. And obviously, as a facilitator, you also need to understand the dynamics of culture, context, and so on, the hierarchy of people, and so on. Because in some spaces where you are mediating, it could be a situation of it's only men that are supposed to talk, women are not supposed to talk, and the likes. How then do you facilitate that kind of a dialogue to such an extent that even women are able to raise their views without creating even further conflict? So dialogue is also facilitated by you as a mediator or facilitators. And it's not necessary with decision-making goal. You foster mutual understanding, that is very important. Promote more information of all perspectives. This is also very important. That it is not only about one perspective. The more the perspectives are there, and the real information, because sometimes perceptions become very dangerous when we are dealing with mediation. So the perspectives must be accompanied by real information that can be processed, so that everybody can reach a suitable conclusion. And again, the dialogue seeks to build consensus in addressing and solving the problem. So there are some steps, excuse me, that you take for collaborative negotiation. Focus on interest, not positions. So people will have their positions to say, this is where we stand, and the other group will say, this is where we stand. But it will be very important to bring them to a common interest. They might have unshakable positions, but the focus in what is the main interest out of this. Negotiating also is about negotiation. Negotiation is about generating a variety of options before deciding what to do. When you negotiate, there must be a number of options to look into, and for the group to be able to conclude on a workable option that they will all be able to implement and are happy with. You must use legitimate objective criteria to persuade. Objective, not subjective. You must be very objective when you are persuading groups to a particular direction. And in that process, also evaluate alternatives in case parties won't reach an agreement. What happens when we don't reach an agreement? Then the alternatives must be established. Use of constructive communication is also key, because there's no way that issues will be mediated when people are not able to communicate to each other. So constructive communication is at the center of mediation. I will send a presentation. So there are some slides that I'm skipping that you'll be able to go through. And this is really planting a seed in your mind, so that when you do this project, at least you've got an idea of what mediation is. Now, when you get to a particular group to mediate, whether there's already conflict or not, it is very important that you introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you want? What are you capable of? And stuff like that. And in a case where there's already conflict that you need to mediate, what is that conflict? So sometimes, because we serve in different contexts, my advice from me to you is that when you get to a place, do a research. Who's here? I mean, if you're in a rural place, who's the chief there? Who's the induna there? Who are the councillors? Who holds power? And all that. In an urban space, who the ward demarcations, political parties, and all that, and do some research. what has been happening the last year, what has been happening here the last 2 years or 3 years or whatever the case might be, and so on. So that you might even find that there's been a negative piece where there's conflict, but it has been avoided for that matter. And you come in to really assist in genuinely resolving the conflict that exists. So it's very important to describe what the conflict is, and also be careful not to be consumed by the cosmetics of a conflict. You know, in communication, especially if communication is not constructive, people might not dwell on what the actual conflict is. They might dwell on themselves. They will tell you how victimized they are, how difficult it has been for them to achieve 1, 2, 3, 4. So it ends up being about them, and we then miss the point of what exactly is a conflict here. So as a mediator, you need to be very skillful in hearing everything that has been said and picking out what the actual issue is. Also, the mediation process is really about solving a problem. That's very key, and so on. But this project seeks to solve a problem even before it happens, to equip and to develop tools that will capacitate people to such an extent that they are able to navigate situations where the problems that arise don't get to a stage of conflict that will be very bad. So when people know that once something like this happens, these are the steps that we need to take, this is how we need to talk to each other, and so on and so on, now you would have assisted a great deal in managing potential conflict and having to solve a problem even before it arises. And then the other stage of mediation is about agreement. Agreement is very important, and I've said that also the agreement is about it should be consensus. It's about we need to agree on this, and all of us consent to it. And sometimes what makes mediation too long is because you are trying to get all the parties to agree on the same thing and on on how to implement. There are steps, there are detailed steps that talk about dialogue and what the facilitator's role is in all that. You'll get the slides, look into that. It will assist you in your assignment, and also it will assist you to start working on your assignment, because it will show you as a mediator and a facilitator what you need to do. Excuse me. What do you need to avoid when you enter into the process of mediation and stuff? You need to avoid criticizing group members or discussing their points of view. As a mediator, you listen more, you summarize, you facilitate. So avoid criticizing one point of view and dwelling too much on the points of views rather than the actual matter. You should avoid also taking non-consulted decisions on behalf of the group. Don't take decisions on behalf of the group. Then that's not mediation. You are going to perpetuate or perpetrate further divisions that might even be difficult to resolve. So you don't want to be part of the problem, you want to be part of the solution. Avoid talking too much. I know that I've already talked too much already for about 30 minutes, but at least this one is a presentation. So in mediation process, avoid talking too much. We know that some of us have our own voices and we've got bright ideas and better ideas and so on, but master the skill of getting people to talk, to raise their feelings, to put issues on the table so that a number of options are put on the place and the groups can be able to reach an agreement. Avoid also judging and pressing the people to make a decision. Don't rush. Don't judge people. So sometimes if you feel that you are already conflicted because you hold a particular view, maybe you might want to distance yourself or to recuse yourself. Because that's where you are going to say, but this one is correct, you are wrong. It is not really our business to do that, because you don't want to divide the groups. Don't force the process. If people don't want to be mediated, if people don't want to talk about issues, if people don't want to find each other and so on, don't force the process. Because at the end of the day, you'll then fall into a trap of negative peace where people just avoid conflict for the sake of peace. And once people do things for the sake of peace, you must know that we have missed the point. And there is part of the presentation here it talks about process design. This is where section 3, I think, you will be assisted by going through this. What is a process goal? Who are the participants? What are their roles? What are the rules of the process? The location and the logistics. Are there resources? What becomes the meeting structure, and so on. So those are the things for you to think about, because if you're going to call people and talk about things that are not there or that might happen or whatever the case might be, your process should be very clear. And when you convene meetings, you'll also see in the presentation, define conveners and mediators. Who are you? Is this a public or private meeting? Who are the participants? Are there any observers? Are there supporters? Well, in a situation of mediating politics, you know that there will be supporters and stuff like that. How are you going to invite? Are you going to invite by email? Are you going to invite? You know, in some areas, you can't even write people letters. You need to send one of the leaders of the communities to be able to invite people. Those that are reluctant, how do you bring them to the fore? Because people can be reluctant because they are suspicious, they don't trust you, you are not one of them, you are an outsider, and then so on and so on. And if there are any spoilers, what are the strategies for you to deal with that? A whole lot of things you will get into the presentation. I want to get to the last part of breaking down this project. So a number of slides there, they will assist you into the skills and the tools and how you go about this project. In fact, the contents of the project, you'll find them in this presentation. So the project is 13 pages. including bibliography. Well, I know that some of you might be shocked and say, yo, 13 pages is like a book already. But if in that 13 pages there's bibliography, the font is 12, the spacing is 1.5, and the style of the project is really practical. It's more practical, but it mixes that with your critical thinking. So you can't put something into practice if you have not thought about it. Your project must display a good leadership. Your project must display that you have shown that you are a good leader in that space. Must display theological perspective and relevant contextual examples. So we will see when we mark this project that it's either we have just rehashed or you don't understand the context, because you really need to use the context of where you are. The aim of the project really is for you to be able to reflect on the theory. So since you come from seminary, you know how to do reflection, you know how to reflect on academic work. You need to be able to devise tools in order to be able to display leadership in church and especially outside church. So in section 1, section 1 requires you to read up on the Catholic spirit, reflect on that, discuss personal experiences of conflict. Sometimes you might have been at the center of conflict. You might have been the source of conflict. Reflect on that. It might have been something that you have observed. In one way or the other, we come from spaces, whether it's in the family, whether it's in church, whether it's in the community, whether it's in work and so on. There's been in one way and so on. And when we have discussed those kind of conflicts, what kind of conflicts are they? And this question really emanates from the work the material that we have read, the Catholic spirit, because John Wesley talks about kinds of conflicts there. What kinds of conflicts were they when you reflect on your own experience of conflict? How were they resolved, those conflicts that you went through? And how long did it take to resolve? Sometimes they might not even have been resolved. On section 2, there's work on making a deal with the devil that you need to go through and then read. And out of that, discuss sources and impact of conflict. It's quite important to understand what generally starts conflict and how does then it impact on the life that we are living. And that work also will tell us, or you'll be able to reflect and then argue on mediation as a solution. If you believe that mediation is not a solution, it's okay. If you believe that mediation is a solution to the conflict that you would have read about, then go for it. Who should mediate church conflict? Where there are conflicts in church, who should mediate, and so on. Then the second part of that section 2 is about then you developing and writing a manual. A manual really is a manual. Don't write another theory. Its manual is about practical steps. In that manual, once you have then developed and written a manual, organize a workshop of leaders in church and community, and you use the manual to train. So you are developing a conflict resolution manual, and you are going to train them and using the very same manual to train them. So you are developing a tool that will be used to train people. And as much as we are saying leaders in church and community, if you can get a mix, it's a good thing. If you can get people that are not necessarily within a Methodist Church, but in the community, it is also exciting. It should also be more than one session. Let it be some kind of a series. So start with your project early, so that when it's required around August, at least we have had a number of sessions. So what is expected then for you to submit, there is a manual, it's evaluation forms, attendance register, and 4 signed testimonies. And you can already see that some of these things really, they will even go beyond the 13 pages for that matter. So section 3, you look at the 4 tasks of practical theology approach. Appropriate this task to your context. So if then you have done your basic research on the context that you are stationed in, you will be able then to appropriate. But if you don't understand the context that you are serving in, it will be difficult for you to answer this project. So appropriate this task to your context and determine, after you've appropriated them, determine whether they will work or not. This task, identify a potential area of conflict, organize a seminar. And then in that seminar, you should, the intention of the seminar is to be able to develop conflict prevention strategies with those that would have participated in that seminar. So if you want to target the taxi industry, go and talk to the association leaders, explain to them what you want to achieve, and so on and so on. And this can be a benefit to them. It can be a resource to them. And then out of that, we are expecting minutes of that seminar, a program on what you would have done, and a strategic document. Because at the end of the day, you are going to develop a strategy. And some of these things are very technical. So when you build relationships in such a way that you build relationships with people that will even assist you, because you can't be jack of all trades. If you're not good in strategy development, I'm sure in your congregation, in the community, or whichever way, there's 1 or 2 people that can help you. And in that helping, obviously, you will then be capacitated. 4 written testimonies should be submitted, and then an attendance register. Also, with attendance registers, they must also comply with the POPI Act. So at least at the bottom of the attendance register, there must be a disclaimer that the information of people will not be shared, will not be circulated, and so on, so that people become comfortable with that. So in a nutshell, that is Project 5. It is a whole lot of work to do, but make sure that you start early, and there will be a number of discussion points that you might want to look at in this project. What is mediation? Sometimes you might have mediated on issues without realizing that you are mediating. So when you reflect on this project, certain things will click and say, oh, wow, okay, when I was doing this, I was actually mediating. When I was doing this, I was actually facilitating a dialogue, and then so on. So some of the parts of this project will really align, or will really resonate to what you have done before, and so on. In one way or the other, you've been involved in parts of this process. And then also points to ponder is that maybe what you also need to reflect on is who are you in this space? Do you find yourself being a talkative person that will not be able to manage a mediation process? Do you find yourself as a short-tempered person, that something that takes long, you will be very impatient with it, and so on? So that in identifying those negative traits, you go on the self-development kind of a process, so that when you get into these steps and the processes and so on, you become very, 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 very impartial. I hope this helps to prepare you. You will get the material. Normally it is uploaded in the website. The method is training website, and also the director will give direction on further getting the material. And really, if you encounter problems, if you need more information, if you need to engage about the project, not looking for answers, but just getting more clarity around the project, don't hesitate to drop me an email, don't hesitate to drop a WhatsApp or a call. Let's talk about it. Because the intention is really for you to do well. It's not about getting you somewhere and stuff. So don't hesitate to call. If you can't find material, don't hesitate to call and stuff. If you need details, you can contact AMU, then they will give you my details. On that note, we wish you all the best. We hope that this will be a better year. It will be an exciting year, and this will be an exciting project for you. May the good Lord bless all your souls. May the good Lord keep the fire burning in your hearts, and may you be passionate preachers, passionate mediators, but most of all, greatest leaders in your communities. Amen. Amen.